I'm going to ask our first speaker to report back to us on the first workshop that took place, or at least number one it's called. It's entitled Organic Farming as an Engine for Rural Economies in the New Member States. And with us to discuss the outcome and the results of this workshop is Guntra Aistara. Guntra, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And the presentation should come up on here? No, that's the... Okay. So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to report from the workshop that we had today. We had a number of speakers who are listed here, who were talking about the first laying out what is the situation with organic farming in new member states, and thinking then through these questions of how can we move forward. So Imre Kovac, Eva Ach, Ann-Maria Slabe, Darko Snaor, Andres Hanssons, and Mariusz Kuśmierek were all of the speakers listed, and I will be summarizing not each presentation and the discussion separately, but rather we have it in three different, we had three main topics. One was looking at the obstacles for organic farming development in the new member states at this moment, as well as we had several examples from best practices in the way that these new member states are moving forward with developing organic in innovative ways. And the main question was really how to create organic farmer as a driver for rural development in the new member states. So to summarize some of the main points that came out of the presenters' presentations. The first is that it's important to remember that organic farming in Central and Eastern Europe often originated out of resistance already. It was a different type of farming, and it was multifunctional from its very beginnings. So it's not something that's new and just a creation out of Europe. Another important point is that at this point, in Central and Eastern Europe, there's a bit of a different situation sometimes than in the older member states, that there's still a very high rural population. And in some ways, this can limit demand for organic products because people can grow their own food and they don't see that they should go spend more money. Imre Kovac was making the point that we should turn this handicap into an advantage and really recognize that this also means that there's more of a connection to the land, and that this is something that we can build upon to really create momentum for supporting organic agriculture. Another important point came out that there are large portions of the population that are farming in near organic ways, or farming in mostly organic ways for their own consumption, even if what they produce for commercial sale is using chemicals and other things. And so it's important to first gauge what is this proportion, what are the statistics of who's doing what, and how to get these people who are almost organic to really not see it as a barrier to enter into the market, but to move forward. There's an issue of lack of trust between consumers and producers, but we'll talk more about that in the conclusions. Eva Ach was making a very important point about the fact that neither consumers nor producers often know the secondary or long-term effects of pesticides and agrochemicals, and people don't really know what it is that they're eating, and this really has to be a way of communicating with the public. There was also a hopeful assessment that there are many younger generations, both of consumers and of producers, and that they are looking for ways for both resistance and creating alternatives. And a few more points about the current situation. Anna Maria Slabe was telling us about the situation in Slovenia and some surveys that they did, where it was very clear that the domestic supply of organic products is not meeting the domestic demand. Yet at the same time, a lot of what is being, in many countries, what's being produced is being exported, and then other organic products are being imported and sold in these these shops. So there's a lot of paradoxes there. And in Slovenia, the number was 80% of domestic demand is not being satisfied by domestic products, organic products. The prices vary greatly in terms of the premium that is on organic products. There's been a big boom in growth in the organic sector in new member states, but that's often not been accompanied by the infrastructure to really deal with it. So there are many farmers who don't really know enough about what they're doing, but they've converted, and so this needs to be matched slightly better. There's also more. There's been more conventional greenwashing that has accompanied the shift in the last 20 years, so it's changed the situation for the organic sector. So some of the main conclusions that we had that came out of the workshop is to really think about how to make organic farming a national issue. So it should be like climate change, that all companies are thinking about how to tackle climate change, and it's a big environmental issue. Also to find policy alliances on all levels, so not just that we speak amongst ourselves, but are working with various parts of the Commission, with consumer organizations, farmer associations. There was a discussion about the deep revisions that are needed for subsidy policies, so that the money ultimately goes to the producers of food, not to banks who own land, for example, or large companies that are simply taking out resources, and that there should be consideration of ceilings for subsidies for the largest money makers, and taxing externalities, and also working on supply management so there isn't overproduction, for instance, of the pigs in the large pig farms. So another set of conclusions is that guidelines and training need to be put into place for green procurement and mass catering in schools and hospitals. We need to identify the political interests at work and to encourage the state to really be representing the interests of rural communities, not just those with capital. And aim for landscape conversion of organic, so 50% conversion of land, not aiming for 10%, and somehow manage to retain organic farming integrity even through such large expansion. And finally, there is an issue about the European, that we need more banking structures that will support the transition to organic farming, and this is a very crucial period that actually is a barrier for many farmers to switch and work not only with the certified farmers, but also the ones who are almost organic. One way to encourage it could be also through collective certification. This is a practice that is very common in many other parts of the world, in developing countries, but not in Europe, and that's perhaps a way forward. And focusing on the political and not only the technocratic impacts, increasing the voice of organic farmers as a class, as a social class, and as an economic class, not just looking at the specific technical issues. Another point which came out was that trust and transparency and communication has to be increased in the whole value chain. We were speaking about the processing industry in Latvia, and that there's a point where people are always thinking about trust between consumers and producers, but there's also international partners and there's processors who should be involved. And just the last few points, I think. Increasing biodiversity and the types of organizations that support organic farmers, not just biodiversity on the farm. Taking advantage of communities that are interested in having more organic production in schools and have access to public land, perhaps, to make that happen. Telling the truth about the long-term effects of pesticides and conventional production methods. And urging the EU to also look into multiple debt circles that affect farmers. So farmers often aren't getting paid for what they actually produce and sell, and they get into debt themselves because they haven't been paid. And so there has to be some regulation that within a few weeks they actually get the money back. And the final conclusion is to bring all the energy that we had in these rooms today from this Congress back to your communities and your neighbors and your farms. And good luck with that.